The stars shimmered against the vast darkness of space as the human battleship Dauntless glided silently through the Orion expanse. Admiral Tae-ho sat in his command chair, his eyes fixed on the tactical display that showed their position relative to the nearest human outposts. His weathered face, marked by years of service, remained calm despite the flashing warning indicators. "Admiral, we're picking up multiple ships entering the sector," reported Commander Soo-jin, her voice steady but concerned. "They're Valkor vessels, sir. A lot of them." Tae-ho nodded slowly. The Valkors were one of the oldest species in the Galactic Alliance, known for their pride and technological superiority. They had always looked down on humans as newcomers to interstellar travel. "How many ships?" he asked. 23 and counting, sir. They're moving to surround us." The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew what this meant. The human fleet consisted of only 5 ships, seriously outnumbered. Across the galaxy, most alien species followed one important rule when dealing with humans: never corner a human fleet. This wisdom had spread after several unfortunate incidents when other species had tried to trap human ships. But the Valkors had always considered themselves above such superstitions. On the Valkor command ship, Admiral Krell watched with satisfaction as his vessels moved into position around the human battle group. "The encirclement is nearly complete," reported his second-in-command. "The humans will have nowhere to run." "Excellent," Krell said, his scaled skin reflecting the blue light of the tactical displays. "These humans think they're so clever. Today we'll show the Alliance that their reputation is nothing but empty stories." Another officer approached cautiously. "Sir, I must remind you of the warning about human fleets." Krell laughed, a harsh sound that made junior officers flinch. "Primitive superstition. They have inferior technology and fewer ships. Their only option is surrender." Back on the Dauntless, Tae-ho received a communication request from the Valkor flagship. The alien admiral's face appeared on screen, mandibles clicking in what humans had learned was a gesture of confidence. "Admiral Tae-ho, this is Admiral Krell of the Valkor Defense Force. Your ships are completely surrounded. Power down your weapons, and prepare to be boarded." Tae-ho showed no emotion. "May I ask the reason for this hostile action, Admiral Krell? We are in neutral space, and our nations are not at war. Your colony ships have been encroaching on territory claimed by the Valkor. Imperium. We are here to escort you to our homeworld where your government will answer for these violations." Commander Soo-jin leaned close to Tae-ho. "Sir, they've cut off all escape routes. Reinforcements are at least 2 days away." Tae-ho nodded almost imperceptibly. Then he addressed the Valkor again. "Admiral Krell, I strongly suggest you reconsider this action. There's a reason most species avoid trapping human fleets." Krell's mandibles clicked rapidly, laughter in Valkor body language. "Yes, your famous reputation. We are not impressed by human fairy tales, Admiral. You have 1 hour to surrender, or we will open fire." The communication ended. Tae-ho immediately called a meeting with his ship captains through the secure quantum network. Captain Jae-won of the cruiser Indomitable spoke first. "They've given us no choice but to fight our way out." "Not exactly," said Tae-ho thoughtfully. "They've given us something much more valuable. They've underestimated us." Captain Bomi of the destroyer Swift raised an eyebrow. "Sir, we're outnumbered. Almost 5-1. Numbers aren't everything, Captain. The Valkors fight by the book. Rigid formations, predictable tactics. They expect us to do the same." A small smile appeared on Tae-ho's face. "We won't." He pulled up a tactical display for all captains to see. "The Valkors don't understand human warfare. Throughout our history on Earth, we've excelled when facing superior forces through adaptation and unconventional thinking. Operation Hydra," he continued. "We'll split our forces into smaller, independent units. Each captain will have full tactical autonomy within the strategic framework." The captains exchanged looks of understanding. This was exactly why human fleets had gained their reputation. "They expect us to either surrender or try to punch through their lines as a single unit," said Tae-ho. "Instead, we'll become 5 separate problems they have to solve simultaneously." Commander Soo-jin stepped forward. Should we deploy the new quantum disruptors, sir? They're still classified technology. Yes, the Valkors need to learn why the rule exists. Teho's expression hardened. They broke the one rule about human fleets. Prepare all ships for combat operations. Let's show them their mistake. As the human captains returned to their ships, Admiral Krell watched the countdown to his ultimatum, completely unaware that he had just created exactly the kind of desperate situation where humans performed best. The hour of Admiral Krell's ultimatum ticked down as Admiral Teho finalized his plans. The 5 human ships remained in their defensive formation, giving no indication of the chaos they were about to unleash. 10 minutes remaining, sir, said Commander Sujin, checking her tactical display. Teho nodded and opened a channel to all human vessels. Captains, synchronize your tactical systems. Remember, once Operation Hydra begins, you'll be on your own. Trust your training and your instincts. Captain Bo Mee's voice came through the comm. The Swift is ready, Admiral. Indomitable. Standing by, added Captain J1. The other captains reported in as well. The Valkor ships had formed a perfect sphere around them, closing all possible escape routes. Their formation was textbook perfect, and that was their weakness. Implement final preparations, ordered Teho. Activate the stealth protocols on our quantum disruptors. When the Valkors open fire, they'll expect us to focus on defense. Instead, we scatter. Sujin looked worried. Sir, the Valkors will interpret our breaking formation as a sign of panic. Exactly, Teho smiled. Let them think we're disorganized. It's the first step in making them doubt their tactical algorithms. As the deadline approached, Admiral Krell opened a communication channel again. Your time is up, human. What is your answer? Teho stood tall. The human fleet refuses to surrender, Admiral Krell. We have committed no violations and will not submit to unlawful detention. Krell's mandibles clicked rapidly. Then you leave us no choice. All ships open fire. The space around the human fleet lit up as Valkor weapons discharged, but instead of raising shields and returning fire as one unit, the human ships suddenly broke formation in 5 different directions. What are they doing? Demanded Krell. This is madness. His tactical officer looked confused. They're not following any known combat pattern, sir. Each ship is moving independently. On the Dauntless, Teho watched as his plan unfolded. All ships execute your assigned strategies. Good hunting. The Swift, the smallest and fastest ship in the fleet, accelerated toward a weak point in the Valkor formation. Captain Bo Mee's voice was calm over the comm. Engaging disruptors in 3, 2, 1. The quantum disruptors were humanity's newest weapon, kept secret until now. They didn't damage enemy ships directly, but instead created localized disruptions in space-time that confused sensors and targeting systems. 3 Valkor ships suddenly found themselves unable to track the Swift as it slipped between them, firing precision shots at their communication arrays before disappearing again. Meanwhile, Captain J1's Indomitable executed a completely different strategy, powering down all non-essential systems to appear critically damaged. When 2 Valkor cruisers approached to finish it off, the ship suddenly came alive, launching a barrage of missiles at point-blank range. Sir, a Valkor officer called out to Krell. The humans are using some kind of stealth technology we've never seen before, and each ship is using different tactics. Krell slammed his clawed hand down on his command console. Impossible. They're coordinating somehow. Find their communication frequencies. But there were no communications to intercept. Before the battle, Teho had given each captain a strategic framework, but granted them complete tactical freedom. Within that framework, the human ships were fighting as 5 independent units, each creating its own chaos in the perfectly ordered Valkor formation. The destroyer Relentless, under Captain Minho, targeted the Valkor's sensor relays, creating blind spots in their detection network. The cruiser Vigilant, commanded by Captain He-Jin, focused on drawing fire from multiple Valkor ships, then using their own crossfire against them. On the Dauntless, Teho watched the tactical display with satisfaction. Phase 1 is complete. Begin Phase 2. Sujin looked up. Sir, the Valkors are already in disarray. Their perfect formation is breaking down. Now they'll try to regroup and adapt, Taeho said. But their command structure is too centralized. Every tactical decision has to flow through Krell first. Aboard the Valkor command ship, Krell was indeed struggling to regain control of the battle. His carefully planned trap was falling apart as the human ships continued their unpredictable maneuvers. Order Group 3 to cut off the humans' escape to the nebula, he commanded. Group 2, focus fire on their flagship. But his orders arrived too late. The human ships had already created so much confusion that the Valkor fleet was responding, reactively rather than proactively. Sir, reported Sujin, the Swift has disabled 3 Valkor communication arrays. Their eastern quadrant is cut off from Central Command. Taeho nodded. Tell. Aboard the Swift, Captain Bomi watched her tactical display as 2 Valkor cruisers tried to anticipate her next move. They had been chasing her for 20 minutes, unable to predict her seemingly random course changes. Bring us around behind. That asteroid, she ordered. Power down everything except minimal life support and passive sensors. Her crew worked quickly, and the small destroyer disappeared into the shadow of the massive space rock. The Valkor ship slowed, scanning for their prey. They think we're setting up an ambush, said Bomi's first officer. She smiled. Then let's not disappoint them, but not in the way they expect. Prepare the mining charges we picked up from Outpost 7. Meanwhile, the Indomitable under Captain Jae-won had adopted an entirely different approach. Instead of hiding, his cruiser charged directly at a group of Valkor ships, weapons blazing. Evasive pattern Delta, he commanded as enemy fire began streaking toward them. The human ship rolled and twisted in ways that defied conventional space combat doctrine. Sir, they're predicting our movements now, warned his helmsman. Then it's time to break pattern. Switch to manual control. The helmsman's eyes widened. Manual, sir? Without tactical assistance? That's right. Fly like you mean it. Taking direct control, the helmsman began to guide the ship with human instinct and creativity rather than programmed patterns. The Valkor targeting computers, designed to recognize and counter established maneuvers, failed to predict the human ship's movements. On the Dauntless, Admiral Taeho monitored the battle's progress. Status of Operation Hydra? Commander Sujin checked her displays. Phase 2 is complete, sir. The Valkors have divided their forces trying to chase our ships individually. Their formation is completely broken. And the neural disruptors? Working better than expected. The Valkors can't maintain consistent sensor locks on any of our vessels. Taeho nodded. Begin Phase 3. Signal the Vigilant. Across the battlefield, Captain Heejin received the coded light flash from the Dauntless. It's time, she told her crew. Activate the prototype. Deep within the Vigilant, engineers activated a device that humans had developed but never revealed to the Galactic Alliance. A quantum field generator that temporarily disrupted the very fabric of space-time. Around it, when activated, the device created a bubble where the laws of physics behaved unpredictably. Inside this bubble, the Vigilant seemed to be in multiple places at once from the perspective of Valkor sensors. What is happening? Screamed a Valkor sensor operator, as 5 identical signals of the human cruiser appeared on his screen. Which one is real? His commander had no answer. Nothing in Valkor military doctrine prepared them for this kind of warfare. Back on the Swift, Captain Bomi launched her trap. The mining charges, normally used for asteroid excavation, exploded in sequence, creating a chain reaction in the asteroid's unstable core. Chunks of rock burst outward in all directions. The Valkor ships, focused on finding the hidden human vessel, reacted too late. Their shields held against direct impacts, but the cloud of smaller debris overwhelmed their point defense systems, damaging external sensors and weapons. As the Valkors struggled to regroup, Bomi powered up her engines and slipped away, already planning her next unconventional attack. On the Valkor command ship, Admiral Krell was losing control of the situation. How are 5 ships causing this much chaos? He demanded. Sir, his second-in-command said hesitantly. I believe I understand now. The humans aren't fighting according to any tactical doctrine we know because they don't have one. Each ship is fighting its own battle. That's insane. How can they coordinate? They don't need to coordinate in real time. They're following some kind of shared understanding but adapting individually. Our centralized command structure can't react fast enough. For the first time, Krell felt real doubt. The rule about not cornering human fleets suddenly seemed less like superstition and more like hard-earned wisdom. Admiral Tejo watched as the Valkor formation continued to deteriorate. What had begun as a perfect trap was now a scattered mess of individual ship battles, each one being won by the more adaptive human captains. "Sir," said Sujin with a hint of excitement in her voice, "I think it's working. The Valkors are falling back in sectors 3 and 5. "They're not retreating," Tejo replied. "They're trying to regroup and establish a new formation. Now is the time for Phase 4. "Phase 4, sir? But that would mean—" The Admiral nodded. "Yes, Commander. We're not trying to escape anymore. Now we hunt." The scattered Valkor fleet tried desperately to regroup as Admiral Krell issued frantic commands. What had begun as a perfect trap had transformed into chaos, with human ships appearing unexpectedly throughout his formation, striking and vanishing before his forces could respond. "All ships, form defensive clusters," Krell ordered. "Prioritize, protecting our command vessels and communication relays." But it was too late. The human ships had already identified the weakness in the Valkor command structure, their dependence on centralized control. With several communication relays destroyed, many Valkor ships were operating in isolation, following outdated orders. On the Dauntless, Admiral Tejo studied the tactical display with calm focus. Phase 3 had worked even better than expected. The Valkors were no longer a unified force but a collection of confused ship groups. "Signal all ships," he ordered. "Begin Operation Reversal." Commander Sujin looked up from her console. "Sir, are you certain? We could use this opportunity to escape the sector." "The Valkors need to learn why their actions were a mistake," Tejo replied firmly. "If we leave now, they'll just try this again with another human fleet." Throughout the battlefield, the 5 human ships received the signal. Instead of continuing their evasive tactics, they suddenly changed course in perfect coordination, converging toward predetermined points in space. Captain Bomi's Swift accelerated toward a group of 3 Valkor destroyers that had become separated from their support ships. Her smaller vessel should have been outmatched, but the Valkors had already lost their sensor advantage to the quantum disruptors. "Targeting their engine sections," she announced. "Fire when ready." The Swift launched a precise barrage of missiles that slipped through gaps in the Valkor shields, not enough to destroy the ships, but enough to disable their engines and weapons. Meanwhile, Captain J1's Indomitable joined with Captain Minho's Relentless in a coordinated attack on the largest Valkor battle group. The 2 human ships approached from opposite directions, forcing the Valkors to divide their attention. "Activate synchronized firing pattern," ordered J1. Both human ships fired at exactly the same moment, but at different targets. The Valkor defense systems, programmed to prioritize threats, couldn't handle the simultaneous attacks from multiple vectors. 3 Valkor cruisers drifted powerless as their main systems failed under the precise human assault. On the Valkor command ship, Admiral Krell watched in horror as his fleet fell apart section by section. How is this possible? They were trapped. They had nowhere to go. His tactical officer, now understanding the truth, spoke quietly. "Sir, I don't think they ever tried to escape. This was their plan all along." "What plan? To be surrounded by superior forces?" "To make us think we had them cornered," the officer explained. "Humans have a long history of turning disadvantages into advantages. They excel at asymmetric warfare." Krell's anger turned to fear as he realized the human ships were now systematically targeting his command vessels. "All ships protect the EEAM flagship. Priority 1. But his orders reached only half his remaining fleet. The rest, cut off from command, were fighting their own isolated battles against an enemy that seemed to be everywhere at once. Captain Hai Jin's Vigilant suddenly appeared near the Valkor flagship, its quantum field generator creating multiple ghost images to confuse defenders. "Which one is real?" cried a Valkor gunner, firing frantically at the phantom ships. The real Vigilant slipped through the defensive screen and launched a precision strike against the flagship's propulsion system. The massive Valkor vessel shuddered as its engines went dark. "Admiral," reported Sujin on the Dauntless, "the Valkor flagship has been disabled. Their formation is completely broken." Taeho nodded. "Open a channel to Admiral Krell." Krell's image appeared on screen, his normally proud posture now slumped in defeat. "Have you come to demand our surrender, human?" "No, Admiral. I've come to explain why you failed." Taeho's voice was calm but firm. "You trapped us because you thought it would make us weaker. Instead, it made us more dangerous. Humans have always performed best when cornered. Your 5 ships couldn't possibly defeat our 23, Krell protested weakly. "Numbers matter less than adaptability," Taeho replied. "While you were following rigid protocols and waiting for orders, my captains were free to make their own decisions within our strategic framework. We turned your perfect trap into the perfect opportunity." Aboard his crippled flagship, Krell finally understood. The rule about human fleets wasn't superstition after all. It was a warning born from hard experience. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now," said Taeho, "we discuss terms for your withdrawal from this sector, and perhaps you can explain to your leaders why the rule exists." As the human ships formed a perimeter around the defeated Valkor flagship, word of their victory was already spreading throughout the galaxy. Once again, someone had broken the one rule about human fleets, and once again, it had been a big mistake. The Grand Council chamber fell silent as Admiral Taeho walked to the central podium. Representatives from 12 spacefaring civilizations watched intently. The human admiral stood tall and calm, his dress uniform bearing only modest decorations despite his recent victory. "This emergency session will now address the Valkor human incident in the Orion Expanse," announced the council elder, an ancient being from one of the founding races. "Admiral Taeho of Earth will present his account." Taeho bowed respectfully before speaking. 3 days ago, a Valkor battle fleet surrounded my small battle group and demanded our surrender. They claimed we had violated their territory, though. We were in neutral space according to galactic maps. The Valkor representative, not Admiral Krell but a hastily appointed diplomat, shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "When we refused to surrender, they attacked," Taeho continued. "My 5 ships were forced to defend against their 23. The battle ended with 14 Valkor ships disabled, 3 destroyed, and the rest retreating." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Everyone knew the outcome already, but hearing it stated so plainly highlighted how extraordinary it was. "The humans employed illegal weapons," the Valkor diplomat suddenly shouted. "Secret technology not shared with the Alliance." The elder raised a hand for silence. "The technology has been examined. The quantum disruptors and field generators are advanced but not forbidden under our treaties. They merely remained classified, as is any civilization's right with new military developments." Commander Sujin, standing behind her admiral, watched the proceedings with quiet pride. After the battle, she had helped document everything for this very moment. "What concerns this council," continued the elder, "is not the technology but the reason for this conflict. The Valkors broke one of the oldest unofficial rules of space: never corner a human fleet." The Valkor diplomat looked down. "We believed this rule to be superstition." A ripple of something like laughter moved through the chamber. The senior Naxian representative, whose species had been spacefaring for millennia, spoke up. "It is not superstition. It is observation. 4 times in the 50 years since humans joined us, different species have tried to trap human vessels. 4 times they have suffered defeat despite superior numbers." Admiral Taeho remained respectful. "We do not seek punishment for the Valkors. We ask only for recognition of the neutral zone borders and a formal agreement to prevent future misunderstandings." The council deliberated briefly before the elder announced their decision. The Valkors will withdraw all claims to the disputed region. Additionally, the rule about human fleets will be formally added to the Alliance tactical guidelines. Later at the reception following the council session, the Valcor diplomat approached Taeho and Sujin. "I must know," he said quietly. "How did you do it? How did 5 ships defeat our fleet?" Taeho considered the question carefully. Throughout human history, we learn to adapt when facing stronger opponents. Traditional military doctrine teaches that surrounded forces are at a disadvantage, but humans discovered that being cornered sometimes creates a unique kind of focus. "But the coordination of your ships," the diplomat pressed, "was not coordination in the way you understand it," Sujin explained. "Each captain operated independently within a shared framework. We call it commander's intent, understanding the overall goal without needing specific instructions for every situation." The diplomat seemed puzzled. "But how can you trust your captains to make the right decisions without direct orders?" "That's the difference in our approaches," Taeho said. "You see uncertainty as a problem to be eliminated through control. We see it as an opportunity for creativity. When your ships lost contact with Admiral Krell, they became less effective. When my ships operated independently, they became more effective." As the diplomat walked away, Sujin turned to her admiral. "Do you think they'll ever truly understand, sir?" "Perhaps not completely," Taeho replied. "Our approach to warfare evolved from our history on Earth, countless smaller forces defeating larger ones through flexibility and unconventional thinking. Space combat is different in many ways, but human nature remains the same." Word of the battle spread quickly throughout the galaxy. In military academies on dozens of worlds, the Orion incident became a required case study. The formal addition to Alliance tactical guidelines was simple. When engaging human forces, maintain distance and mobility. Never surround or corner human vessels unless complete destruction is the only acceptable outcome. 6 months later, Captain Bomi, now promoted to fleet commander, stood with Taeho on the observation deck of Earth's orbital headquarters. Below them, the blue planet turned peacefully. "The Valcors have been unusually cooperative lately," she commented. "Their ships even helped escort our colony vessels last week." Taeho nodded. "Nothing builds respect like understanding. They thought they knew us, but they only knew about us. Now they understand why humans are different." "And the rule?" Bomi asked with a small smile. "The rule stands," said Taeho, "and I suspect it will be a very long time before anyone breaks it again." Throughout the galaxy, a new saying began to spread among alien military officers. "If you must fight humans, give them a way out. If you corner them, you've already lost."